Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our panel certainly for being here and sharing your insight and expertise. We know that this is tariffs and trade in general is such an important topic. I think some of the discussion that we've had across America about trade has been healthy recently. Now, I believe that tariffs are negative, end up hurting producers and consumers. That is a huge concern that I have. I appreciate the President's objective. I appreciate what his intentions are, and I would also say that it stands to reason that the sooner we can get this resolved, the better. I hear multiple concerns from Nebraskans about the impact on tariffs. We have a large sector of center pivot manufacturing, those big sprinklers that are shipped around the world, use a lot of steel. And Ranke, for example, they tell me that their input costs for steel have gone up already, and it actually hurts their competitiveness. So we see that more and more. I mentioned last week in terms of more agriculture products themselves, the dry bean industry. Kelly Bean tells me that in Scottsbluff, they tell me that they have seen reduced orders from Europe, actually. Also preferred popcorn. In Chapman, Nebraska, they tell me that they've lost orders in Asia and in Europe. And so we see the exclusion process, and as has been mentioned, it's not working very effectively. So we need it to work more effectively and also acknowledge these realities. I know, Mr. Semser, you pointed out that the concerns with the quota system that perhaps could leave you without product to buy, perhaps at any price. That is a concern expressed to me by some Nebraska producers as well, and that with Brazil, for example, choosing the quota rather than being subjected to the 232 tariffs, that conceivably could leave a good opportunity in Nebraska without product at all, at any price. I hope we can address that. And so, Mr. Semser, of course, I don't want you to repeat yourself what you've already said, but I'm just wondering if you could perhaps give us a best-case scenario moving forward.
Best-case scenario moving forward is all our politicians and our administration fixing our issue very quickly. I mean, that is the best case. If it could be today, that would be great. That's best case for us.
Anyone else wishing to respond to that same question?
I just wanted to make a comment. I think another critical factor we've got to keep in mind is we can't let government trade officials determine product specs. So we've talked a lot about tariffs, exclusions, quotas, but the real alarming thing for me is if we end up having a trade official overrule a company and say adequacy of a product spec. It's our pipelines, or specifically speaking for planes, it's our assets. We're responsible for them. We're held accountable for them, and we will operate them for decades and decades. So I think it's a key factor that we got to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree very much here. We've asked our primary mill to give us steel, 20 to 50,000 tons of specific specifications. They want to charge us extra to give us a trial order to requalify. We got to qualify. It takes 6 months to 2 years to qualify. And right now, we're spec'd at a German mill. If we can't compete with Germany, a high-cost country, we got a problem in this country. And it's probably technical. It's not people. It's technical. It's putting in the right equipment to run the right products. So, and this is a cliff. We're being tariffed. Our supply chain is 6 months. If we don't order now for December or January, we don't have it. So we're betting on the future. What is the future? We have no idea. It's really a tariff that is very, very painful.
Mr. Semser.
One of the ideas that we came up with through this whole process, which would be probably the next best scenario for us to support the government's initiative, is to source all the stainless steel strip from the U.S. and ship it to Korea for processing. But unfortunately, that type of system still falls under the same HTS code and the same quota system as we have today. So although we're supporting the initiative, we still get no good outcome for micro.
So virtually the highly specialized aspects of the product is the complicating factor. Is that accurate?
Correct.
And I think it's important to note that the mere number of requests for exclusions certainly speaks to the complexity of this entire issue. So that I just want to say that I hope we can get this resolved sooner rather than later. Thank you. I'll yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Before I close, I wanted to ask Mr. Hausman a question or two. So I asked each of the other gentlemen how many employees they had. How many employees does the United Steelworkers Union employ?